Who are the top running backs to draft on Underdog for the 2021 NFL season? I'll give you my top 5 and explain why I'm getting there. Let's get right into it. Coming in at number 5, we have Derrick Henry. Now, Derrick Henry is going to be a guy that's going to go very early in drafts because he has an incredible ceiling. And he's actually a guy that I've been getting, he's fallen below his ADP. Maybe I get him in the 6th slot, maybe I get him in the 7. One time I got him 10th. And that's how I get to that exposure of 19%. Because typically with these first-round guys, I like to kind of spread out my exposure. But if Derrick Henry's fallen into my lap at, pick 7, 8, 9, I'm going to take it. Because Derrick Henry is a guy that's going to have a very high volume. He rushed for over 2,000 yards last season. And I think he's a guy that can definitely have the spike weeks to win you an underdog tournament. And he's definitely a guy that's going to have the workload. And it's very secure. There's no running back behind him that's going to take his spot. So whenever I can get Derrick Henry, I'm gonna definitely take it. And I haven't been fortunate enough to get, the Dalvin Cook and Christian McCaffrey slot all the time. Roll the dice, it happens. But I'll gladly take Derrick Henry. His spike weeks are gonna be high enough where they can match up with Christian McCaffrey and Dalvin Cook. But they're just not going to happen as much as those guys would have those spike weeks. So he's a very game script dependent kind of a guy. He's going to get his carries if it's a positive game script, and I really like the potential volume that's there. He had 59 red zone touches in 2020, so I really don't think the number of 17 touchdowns is crazy to think that he could replicate that. He's going to get over 60 red zone touches this year with the added game. I think Derrick Henry could be a guy for the winning underdog lineup, and he's going to be volatile. It's going to be up and down, but if you get those big-time scores in the playoff weeks, you're probably sitting really pretty on underdog. Coming in at number 4, we have Jonathan Taylor. Now, Jonathan Taylor's ADP is currently 16.1, so he's going in the second round, and I've seen him go in the first round. Now he's going in the second round, and his ADP dropped because Carson Wentz got hurt, but it looks like Carson Wentz is on the right track to be healthy. So Jonathan Taylor looks really good. He's definitely going to be the lead back for the Colts. I don't really see any sort of competition there. I mean, you can argue Hines is going to get some of the receiving work, which I think he will, but for the most part, I see Jonathan Taylor being the guy. And I don't really see anybody taking carries from Jonathan Taylor. And I see him being involved in the passing game as we saw towards the end of last season. Now, I see Jonathan Taylor having sort of a Dalvin Cook type profile where primarily he is a runner as a running back. But he is good enough in the passing game to be a guy that can pay off if he gets the ball through the air. I don't see him as a guy that's going to be necessarily running routes in the slot, but I think, those checkdowns for Jonathan Taylor are going to be there, and he's got a nose for the end zone, so I really see Jonathan Taylor being a guy that can pay off and could be a solid RB1 type if you go wide receiver in the first round. If you want to go kind of fragile and go running back, I think Jonathan Taylor looks really good there as well. He's probably going to be a consistent performer week to week, and Jonathan Taylor looks like a guy that can definitely offer you a high floor in underdog. Coming in at number 3, we have Gus Edwards. Now, Gus Edwards is going at pick 121, so he's going in the 10th round, and he's a guy that you're kind of banking on as an RB2 option in a wide receiver heavy build, right? So, it's likely that you're probably drafting a decent RB1 and you're going wide receiver heavy and you're getting, a pool of 3 to 4 guys to be your RB2. And I think Gus Edwards is a great candidate for that. My exposure to him is pretty high at 23.8%, and I think he's a guy that could be a great value heading into 2021. Now, I see him having the same upside as J.K. Dobbins, and they've really been split the carries for Baltimore, and I expect more of the same this season. Now, they don't even run Lamar Jackson that much at the goal line, so I really see Gus Edwards having a ton of upside there. And he had 25 touches inside the 20-yard line last year, and he turned 6 of those into touchdowns. I think there's a lot of upside there, and if Gus Edwards has those ceiling weeks in playoff time, I really think he can be a solid RB2 option, and I see him having just as much upside as J.K. Dobbins. So why wouldn't I draft him in round 10 rather than getting J.K. Dobbins in, say, round 3, right? So, Gus Edwards being the power back that he is, I really like the spot in the 10th round for him, and I'm going to embrace the volatility and get Gus Edwards at a pretty good value. Coming in at number 2, we have Ronald Jones. Now, Ronald Jones is getting drafted also in the 10th round at his current ADP of 104.1, and he's a guy that I really see myself gravitating to in the 10th round, when I'm looking for a volatile running back, Ronald Jones is definitely going to be game flow dependent. He's not a receiving back. That's definitely not who he is. And there's going to be games where he's just phased out of the offense because he's not a skilled receiver. That's just kind of how it is. And I think if you draft Ronald Jones, you have to know that going into it. Now, he is a guy that is going to have some big play upside. And if you're just looking at the game logs from last year, he had that 98-yard run against Carolina. And in that game, he had almost 200 yards from scrimmage with the touchdown. So, if you get that in the playoff weeks, Ronald Jones could be a guy that could be a must-have during that week. And if he's a guy that's going to have that big play upside, why not play into that volatility? Say you drafted a running back in the first round and you wanted to go receiver heavy in the next few rounds. Ronald Jones fits into that build in round 10, where you just need one of your 4 other running backs to have a spike week as RB2, and then you're pretty much golden from there. Now, Ronald Jones can definitely be that guy, and he averaged over 5 yards per carry last season just because he has those long runs. And he's a guy that's going to get big chunk plays, and in games that Tampa Bay is in control, he's going to get the ball 17 to 25 times. That's just kind of how the game flow goes. So I think that Ronald Jones has a lot of upside. And if the playoff time comes around and the Bucs are firmly in control and they can rely on the running game, Ronald Jones is going to get the ball. So that's just kind of how that is. And Ronald Jones looks like a solid RB2 option and is a guy I'm getting in a lot of drafts this season. Coming in at number 1, we have Darrynton Evans. Now, he's my highest exposed back of the season so far, and I'm getting him at the end of drafts. You see his current ADP of 200.1, so he's going in the 17th or 18th round in every single draft. And if you're going to take a flyer on somebody, why not be Derrick Henry's backup? This is going to be a good offense all season long, and if Derrick Henry is out for whatever reason, it looks like Evans is going to slot in there as RB1. Now, is he going to get the 25-plus carry workload that Derrick Henry usually gets? Probably not. I don't think that's a reasonable outcome to predict, right? Because he is much better as a satellite back, like a Tariq Cohen type. And I think that Evans, if he is the RB1 for whatever stretch it may be, he has a lot of upside because if the Titans are going to pass the ball more, he's still going to be on the field because he's a skilled receiver. And he's going to get the carries because, quite frankly, the other running backs they do have are not very good. So if he's the guy with Derrick Henry out at pick 200, that's an insane value. And it's a guy that I'm fine getting at this high of exposure. I think that's a great shot to take. And he has decent upside. I would rather draft him than like a Keelan Cole or someone like that at the end of drafts, just taking a flyer on receiver. I think he's got more upside, and I think if he does get time as the starter, that could pay off, and he could be RB2 for those weeks. It's certainly possible, and it's not an outcome that's crazy to predict. So I really like Darrynton Evans at the end of drafts, and that's a flyer I'm going to keep taking until the season starts. If you went on to enjoy the video, make sure you slap a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. We're going to be banging out NFL content all season long. You're not going to want to miss it. And if you want to check out teamriseorfall.com, use code TEAMMAY for $5 off your first month. And you can catch me on Twitter at TeamMadeDFS. I'll catch you in the next one.